Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Guy. This is Guy Talk Sports. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how Tennessee had its time to shine at SEC Media Days. Going to go over a few things about what Josh Heupel said, which players he brought with him to SEC Media Days. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you, I don't know who we is. I'm going to tell you who or where the Vols were picked to finish in the SEC. Before we do that, though, real quick, if you don't mind, look down below. There's a subscribe button. Go ahead, smash that for me. Help me continue to grow this channel. If you want to jump ahead, I will. Similar to the last video, I'm trying to do this every video now. I'm putting timestamps in the description so you can go to if you want to jump ahead to a particular part of the video. Anywho, let's get into this. So like I said, Tennessee took part in SEC Media Days. It was held in Dallas, Texas this time. I'm not a fan of that. I think it should be a more centralized location. I biased, but I still think Nashville is a better option. I think there's a lot of cities that are a better option than Dallas, Texas. I think they clearly did it because Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC. And they've had their day for SEC Media Day as well. So they wanted to be in Dallas because Texas is joining the SEC. I get that. Again, not a fan. I think it should be a more centralized location, more fair for every team. Either way, that being said, let's go over a few of the comments that Josh Heupel, talked about in his press conference. Not much happened. He was asked about Kalen DeBoer, who's now the head coach of Alabama. I did not realize this, but Kalen DeBoer is from South Dakota as well. So Josh Heupel and Kalen DeBoer are both South Dakotans. South Dakota. I don't know how you pronounce the plural form of that. Either people from South Dakota. Either way, there's a cool little note. Asked about last season. He talked about and how it didn't end as they hoped. Talked about how they've had 20 wins over the last 2 years. That's really the best it's been in the last 2 decades, which is more than fair. A lot of coach speak, got to keep at it. Did mention how this roster is the deepest they've had, and mentioned how far they've come, which we talked about in the last video. I guess I particularly mentioned that for the defensive line, but really, if you look across the board, it's the deepest the team has been for most positions. Anyway, I think. I think quarterback, oddly enough, I think quarterback is one you kind of worry about as far as depth goes. I think there's tons of questions in the secondary, which he was asked about the secondary. He talked about how that group is deep because they did bring in a lot of bodies. They had a ton of turnover. But he, talked about how he was excited about them, how they're very athletic, and how he's excited to watch them compete in fall camp. So he was asked about the communicators and the helmets and how he felt about that. He said it was great because you can give players feedback right away, give them information immediately. He did say, however, how you can almost do too much because sometimes he talked about how the players at times weren't too big of fans of it because they're getting all this information now all of a sudden, and how there's kind of a balance they're having to learn for how much they can give these players in real time when they're still on the field, running around, versus when they come to the sidelines. So I think that was an interesting part of the conference. I think that's definitely something that I am interested in to see how that's going to affect college football this year. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it was. And I've done a video on this as well. It was high time they put communicators in helmets. Some high schools even do that now. NFL's been doing it for years. It was about time college football did it. So excited about that. Obviously there were 2 big main points from Josh Heupel's conference that everybody wanted to talk about. Nico and Oklahoma, right? So Josh Heupel, again, I did a video on this a while back when I was going over kind of the history of Josh Heupel and his kind of career path so far. how so he played at Oklahoma, won them a national championship, was second in the Heisman vote that year. I think he lost to Chris Winkie, I believe. Anyway, so he has a lot of ties to Oklahoma. Coached Oklahoma, was their co-offensive coordinator, and then kind of abruptly was fired. And so there's been a lot of tension there, and I think that a lot of people naturally are wanting to ask about what's it like, because Tennessee goes to Oklahoma this year, and he kept it respectful. He never got detailed, mainly just that he was excited to be back, excited to see a lot of people again, still has a lot of relationships with a lot of people there. So just it was mainly coach speak stuff, what you would expect from Heupel. He's never one to give you a lot. He's never one to really give you a headline. If you've watched any of his press conferences, it is pure coach speak, typically anyway. And we'll talk about this later about why I think that's a good thing. And then, so the other main question he was asked about, obviously, Nico, right? Nico, since he was a high school star, has been asked about in the spotlight. He had a lot of really good things to say about Nico. Talked about his athleticism, ability to throw all over the field, how he can extend plays with his feet, which in the last video, I really tried to highlight that. I think that's going to be one of the biggest takeaways. If he can stay healthy this year, that's going to be one of his biggest attributes, is being able to run with the ball, because that really opens this offense up. Talks about his elusiveness. He is very elusive. I was very surprised, I guess. I didn't realize. I knew he liked to run with the ball, but I didn't realize how elusive he was in the pocket to avoid pressure. And then, one of the big things he talked about was how Nico's worked really hard, and all this is paraphrasing, by the way, right? I'm not taking exact quotes, but how Nico's worked really hard to earn everyone's respect. Thinks the game is slowing down for him, particularly after the Iowa game. How he kind of went into that game, things were moving fast still, and as the game progressed, things slowed down. And I think you're going to see some of that, especially at the beginning of the season. That's why NC State at the beginning of the year, I think, is going to be tougher than what we want it to be. Because NC State's a great team, but also Nico that'll just be like his third game starting. So you hope to see that continue to slow down for him. And Heupel talked about how he's really really maturing. So really that's the main highlights. He was asked a few other things. You really just got coach speak from him, like I was saying. But he was asked, why did he not bring Nico to SEC Media Days? Obviously, everybody wants to hear from Nico, and he said he really wanted to bring three veteran guys. Three guys that that help run that locker room. And so the three guys he brought were Cooper Mays, Keenan Pili, and Omari Thomas. And I really think those are three great selections. Honestly, I think, in my opinion anyway, I think bringing Nico would have been more of a distraction for Tennessee than anything. Everybody, rightfully so, is excited to see Nico play, right? They're excited to see him. But as far as talking about the program, where the locker room's at, different things like that, you really do want to bring veteran guys that are good at handling media, handling the pressure, the spotlight, right? And aren't going to detract too much from Tennessee. And so with Nico, I think it could be more of a distraction. Now later on in his career, I think obviously he'll probably come either next year or the year. I guess it would have to be next year, because he's probably going to the NFL after next year. But anyway, so Cooper Mays, Keenan Pili, Omari Thomas, all three of them did amazing jobs. Cooper Mays, he's always been a really sharp guy. Center, handles things really well. Omari Thomas, Keenan Pili, all of them did really well. I think it's kind of refreshing to see Keenan Pili, because it was somebody we heard about a lot before the season last year, and then he got hurt in the first game. You didn't really see him again, and so it was good to see him. And then obviously Omari Thomas, he's been running that D line for a few years now. So I think he chose three really good veteran guys to come and represent the University of Tennessee. So I was happy with that selection. Let's talk about the big a poll that was released, right? The SEC media put out their preseason SEC predictions, and I think, and I'm gonna go through them all, and I'll list them all on the screen as I talk about them. Overall, number one, Georgia was listed as the winner, and I think that juggernaut of a program that Kirby Smart has built down there. I think that's the right choice. And I think that number two, Texas, I think that's the right choice as well. At number three was Alabama. With all the questions that they have with some of the players that have left, with Nick Saban retiring, Kalen DeBoer coming in, number four was Ole Miss, and number five LSU. And honestly, as much momentum as Ole Miss has had over these last few years with Lane Kiffin, it wouldn't surprise me if Ole Miss finishes better than Alabama does. It really wouldn't. I mean, Alabama, they still have tons of talent. They brought in tons of talent. They're going to be an amazing team. Lane Kiffin has shown over and over again that he's going to put out a good product. And so, to me anyway, I think Ole Miss probably should have been at number three. I think you're kind of splitting hairs, though. Alabama is still going to be a great team. LSU, though, too, with Brian Kelly. Now, you lost your starting quarterback, so you're having to replace that. But I think you could have a good argument for especially for Ole Miss, but Ole Miss and LSU being ahead of Alabama. Maybe not LSU as much, but Ole Miss for sure. Number six was Missouri, and then number seven was Tennessee. And I think this is probably the second part of the poll that I disagree with. I think seven is about right. I think seven's about right for Tennessee. Missouri was a really great team last year. I think they won 10 games and their bowl game. And then I think they bring back a lot of talent as well as their starting quarterback. So it's hard to say Tennessee should be above them, but I think both teams are pretty close. I think you could have seen Tennessee at number six. All the other teams above Tennessee that were predicted, I'm fine with. But I don't know. I guess I don't know if it's more just the history of Missouri that bothers me seeing them above us, or just the fact that I can't stand their annoying head coach. He is just, it's hearing him talk and watching him act at anywhere. It's like hearing nails on a chalkboard to me. I can't stand him. He's a bit of a clown. I don't know if you remember, I talked about it a little bit in one of the when Tennessee played Missouri at Missouri in basketball this year, and he acted a fool. And it just, I guess part of it is just not liking Missouri and seeing them above us. But either way, it's fair. I think Missouri at 6 is fine. I think Tennessee at 6 would have been fine too. But so Tennessee winds up at 7, and I think that's a good spot, right? 6 or 7. I think that's about right. It's tough. It's weird to say that because of how talented I think Tennessee's team is. But then you look at the rest of the conference, and it's just like, how do you it's Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and just all these great teams, and so Tennessee pick middle of the road, and I think that's fair, but I think they have a good shot at finishing higher than that. And let's go ahead and run down the rest of these. 8 was Oklahoma, 9 Texas A&M, 10 Auburn, 11 Kentucky, 12 Florida, 13 South Carolina, 14 Arkansas, 15 Mississippi State, and then to round out the pack, as usual, number 16 Vanderbilt. So one really quick note, and it really warmed my heart, was to see when they put abbreviations next to these teams for the polls, the SEC officially put Tennessee as UT and Texas as TEX. And again, I've done a video on this about why it is the dumbest argument about how Texas says they're the real UT. They're not. They can call themselves the University of Texas. They can't call themselves the real UT. We were a school long before they were. And so it really made me smile to hear that to see that they were TEX and that we were the real UT. It's the dumbest argument. Anyway, so let's just kind of my overall thoughts on how SEC Media Days went. Overall, I think it went as well as it could have for Tennessee, right? For the SEC Media Days, in that there was no drama. Again, I was talking about earlier how Heupel talks mainly in coach speak. He brought 3 veteran guys because I think drama can be distracting, right? There's no drama. There's no drama. It's just, ho-hum press conference. And I think that's what you want. And especially for Tennessee, I think you want teams to overlook you a bit. And because I really think this is one of the best. 2022 is the best Heupel Tennessee team by far. I think this is the second best, has potential to be the best Heupel team for 2024. And it's, for me anyway, I want people to overlook Tennessee. I don't want there to be a lot of drama. I don't want there to be a lot of highlights. I don't want all the cameras on Knoxville. And so I think I would very much rather be flying under the radar than the center spotlight right now. So I'm very happy with how SEC Media Days went. I think, like I said, I think 7's a fair place. Missouri, I hope you lose every game. One thing, there is a whole bunch of love from Oklahoma right now to Heupel. A lot of people saying, the relationships are mending. I don't like hearing that. As a Tennessee fan, selfishly, I want him to hate Oklahoma, because if that job ever came open again and those relationships are mended, I would be very afraid of Heupel ever leaving. And so, again, it's more me kind of poking at myself and being a selfish fan. But I'm allowed to be, because I'm a fan of the University of Tennessee. So I will say predictions aren't everything, right? I just talked about how Tennessee's predicted 7th and how I think Tennessee could be flying under the radar a bit. They're often quite wrong, right? When you look at these preseason versus postseason where everybody ends up, typically they're wrong. You get a surprise team here. Somebody falls that they shouldn't, that lost to somebody when they shouldn't have. But I think it does really bode well. If you look at the bottom 6 teams in the league that were predicted this year, Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. Do you know what all 6 of those teams have in common? They all played Tennessee this year. So although we have to play Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, you do get a bit of a break in that the last 6 teams predicted in the conference. Now, this is the SEC, and so other than Vanderbilt and maybe Mississippi State, Arkansas, bottom 3 teams, bottom 4 teams, you could say, okay, they're not the best teams. It's still the SEC, and so every team can beat you on any given day. I get that, but for the bottom 6 teams that were predicted to be on your schedule, I think it's pretty lucky. I think it's pretty good. I didn't realize how low people were on, in particular, Arkansas and Mississippi State. I knew they were going to be predicted low. I didn't know that low. Florida is under Kentucky. It's weird to see Florida and South Carolina under Kentucky, but Kentucky, Mark Stoops has consistently put out a good product every year. It's not a great product, but for Kentucky, it's a pretty good product. So still, bottom 6 teams on your schedule, it's not bad. It's hard to complain with that, right? Especially being in the SEC. That's all I have. I'm a little winded. That was a fun one. I enjoyed getting to see that poll. I enjoyed watching some of the videos. If you haven't watched them, not much is said on the video. Definitely watch them if you want to. Like as far as the press conference goes with Heupel and the players and all that. But not a lot is said. It's a lot of coach speak and yeah, we're gonna give it our best shot. But I am very excited about this season. I like seeing us flying under the radar. And I think, like I said, I think 7's a fair place. I think really should have been 6, but either way, It's really me just being more of a Tennessee fan and a Missouri hater. Anyway, this was a good one. Let's wrap it up on that. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. It really means a lot that you're supporting this channel. If you don't mind, drop a comment down below. Where do you think Tennessee should have been predicted? Who is your prediction for for who's going to win the SEC? Do you have a list of 16? Post them in the comments. If you don't mind, like the video. Really helps me out. And then lastly, or second to last now, hit that subscribe button for me. Help me continue to grow this channel. And now, finally, lastly, tell somebody about the channel if you don't mind. I really appreciate that. That's how this thing is really going to grow, is if you say, hey, have you watched Guy Talk Sports? It talks about Tennessee sports. I know you're a Tennessee fan, right? You should check it out. Tell somebody about it. Really helps me out. Thank you so much. Go Vols. We'll see you next time.